Metalheads, welcome to Grafikmetal, where rock and metal is celebrated with design in mind. Hope you're all enjoying your feasts. What better than to celebrate our now bloated tummies with the behemoth, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard entire catalog. Yep, we're going to attempt to rank all 26 studio albums up to this point. Also, note that, I don't know if people noticed, but Phantom Island, their latest track. What does everyone think of the latest track about a month ago now at this point? Very interesting. Important to remember, this is my list and my list only. You are most certainly going to hate it, or at least disagree with a lot of it. Especially with this band, because, my gosh, I mean, like, what two people are even going to have the same ranking from 1 to 26? Seriously. I mean, but that's what makes this so exciting and so much fun. So let's get started. Now let's bring up the whiteboard. All right. So this way you can follow along to see as we build, the list. All right. And then we got all their 26 albums. I put them in chronological order. I'm not going to focus too much on design because I'll do another list ranking the album covers. Let's start with number 26. Anyone want to guess what it might be? Eyes Like the Sky. It is, I believe it was officially album 2, back in 2013. It's kind of like their garage rock, but also unique because it was spoken word focused. I love the feeling and the vibe that it captures. I do like that. But it's early. They hadn't quite figured it out yet. It just seems a little bit rough around the edges, and only a couple of tracks are actually worth listening to again. So let's move on to number 25. Gonna go with, actually, the second most recent. I'm gonna go with the Silver Cord. I will admit that it's growing on me a little bit more, and I love when they did a little while ago with their tour, when they did their electronic section and did a lot of songs off of the songs from Silver Cord. I love the idea of the Silver Cord, and I felt like it was a logical transition for them, especially at that time, and the polar opposites in comparison to PetroDragonic, but this just didn't really work, I think, the way that they were expecting. Let's move on to number 24. 24. Gonna go with their debut. Again, not EP, but this is their first official album, which is 12 bar Bruised. Great energy. Punk vibe, enthusiasm. It's fun. It's bright. It's vibrant. Also love those early music videos. 23. I was tempted to put this one probably even lower, but at least it's got better production. But I'm gonna go with Gumboot. Yeah, Gumboot. Gumboot is, I think it's pound for pound their weakest. It's probably the most unoriginal. Like, it just feels flat, feels generic. I think that's what I'm trying to say here, is it just feels kind of caught between things, and there's very little songs that are memorable, moments for that matter. It just was kind of blah. Number 22, the second part of their, I guess, quote unquote debut, their name, that is. I don't know, they're just not that many great songs. I hear people actually liking it. I do love the experimentation. I do like that, both with the pairing of the two. I do like that, but there's just not many memorable moments. 21, right? 21. Okay, probably the first big shocker here. This is probably going to rub people the wrong way. Most certainly will. But I'm going to go with Polygondwanaland. Is number 21. I love, Crumbling Castle and with Deserted. There's some great songs, but overall, in my opinion, this is probably a very overrated album as a collective unit. Yes, I also like the storytelling, and the building the lore as they would start to get into in this era. But I do love the album artwork. I do like that too. but I just don't think there's enough good songs on this album. I'm sure many people will have probably ranked in the top 10, top 5 even probably. But let's move on. Number 20. Actually, let's move along. Float Away. Probably their first official great album. It was early on. It's, psych rock. The only thing that really holds back this album, this will be a little bit of a common trend with these earlier albums, the production. The production is a little weak. I know that they're doing psychedelic, garage rock. I understand that, but still, now looking back, trying to come back to some of these albums, I'd rather listen to it live, which these songs translate really well live. There's, Head On, Pop in My Step, Let Me Mend the Past, right? Obviously a classic. There's some just really great songs, and I love the overall depth and flow of the album. Number 19, gonna go with Murder of the Universe. The thing with this one is that this one is probably their second most important album when it comes to the story of the King Gizzard lore. So it's critical. And for that, I do want to give it credit. I also love the concept of it. In the case with this one, it really comes down to it feels way too repetitive. It's not even that long, but it just feels like a lot of the songs are basically just kind of, tangents or slight variation to other songs. There's not a whole lot of meat on the bone for this album. Interestingly enough, they just recently played this one almost in all its entirety. I think it was all the way, but if it not, very, very close live, and it was great. These songs translate really well live. So there's that. Number 18, Butterfly 3000. This one was super unique at the time. It was 2021, but I don't think that they had really done this kind of electro pop quite to this extent, on a full album basis. So, number 17, Oddments. Early on in their career, this one also curveball. At the time, super curveball. It was early for them to introduce soul. It had soul. That was what made it so special. There's some incredible songs on it. Work This Time, one of their greatest songs. Actually, statistically, their most popular song, actually, interestingly enough. Also, got to give credit for, the track Homeless Man Wearing Adidas. That's probably one of the most clever song titles in their entire catalog. All right, number 16. I'll go with the first part of KG. Then I'll go with again. Love the experimentation, and it's definitely better than the second part. There's some good songs. Interestingly enough, about both of them. My favorite songs are the last two songs, which are much more doom-oriented, which worth noting that personally, I believe that doom metal, it will be the next style that King Gizzard will do next. I believe that. Now, Phantom, the most recent song, not that at all, but it was pretty much just the continuation of the blues from the most recent album. So maybe it was because of that. Maybe it was really just to kind of remind people, hey, we're still here, because they were about to do a few more tour dates. Again, coming back from a little bit of a winter break since they're Australian, right? But nonetheless, I still think that very soon they will do a completely full-on doom metal album. Just saying. Number 15. Kind of an overlooked album, Quarters. Really, this one kind of feels fitting concerning the fact that there's 4 songs. It's 50-50. 2 of the songs, which, if I remember, let's see, The River and God is in the Rhythm. Those 2 tracks are amazing. Not a big fan of the other 2 tracks, but those 2 songs I listen to a lot. and that's the reason why it's, because there's only 4 tracks, so 50-50, that's pretty good. And I like the album concept and the cover artwork. Probably one of the stronger ones, even though usually I'm not a big fan of just the isolated boxes of different artwork, but in this case, because of its concept, it works perfectly. Number 14, also overlooked, Laminated, Denim. This one too. This one's only 2 tracks, but very long songs. I think one of the more overlooked albums, but I think that it's, Hypertension, I want to say. That is a really good song. And in general, it's a pretty strong album, actually. But for whatever reason, I think it's because they had, 4 albums released that year, I want to say. In 2022, is that when it was? Or, yeah, 2022, I believe. But very strong. Number 13. Gonna go with Changes. I'm actually a huge fan of whenever they do a little bit more accessible, poppy, melodic styles and songs. And this one's very catchy. It's one that I find coming back to on a decent basis. But I do think that there's another level that they can reach. Number 12, Paper Mâché. This one has moments that were the first time that they truly introduced this more accessible, pop, simple style. I actually find it to be slightly a little bit stronger than Changes, which is very surprising considering the fact it's 10 years difference between the two. But nonetheless, I think that this one also kind of gets lost because it was a little bit more early on in their career. I love it when Gizzard brings their soul. Gizzard's soul is good in my book. Number 11. Yeah, okay. Go with Flying Microtonal Banana. Obviously, probably one of the stronger album titles and album artwork. Obviously, for many people, this or The Obvious are the two that probably most people get introduced into the band. Especially, I want to say that Rattlesnake is probably the video and the song that most people first, got introduced into the band. So I think that there is a nostalgic attachment to this album. There are some really obviously strong standout classics of theirs in the songs, but I do think that there are a few duds, and I do think that conceptually it's not quite as strong or as experimental as some of their other albums. But now we get into the top 10. So let's see. Top 10. Okay, I'm in your mind, Fuzz. Hard to keep this one down because it is without a doubt probably their first truly classic album. Also one that for many people, it is the first album that I got introduced into the band, so I have that nostalgic attachment to it. I also am a huge fan of this album artwork. I love the flow. I love everything about this album, but there's one element that holds it back, and it's the production. I get it. I understand that it was intentionally unique, and this whole garage, rock, fuzzy kind of style, and I get that, but revisiting it now is tough. I'd rather listen to the songs live. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear that rough, fuzzy sound anymore. It's just kind of, I'd rather have the soother, warmer tones and, brings out these songs. There's so many great songs on this album. It's a shame. This would be one that I hope that they remake with the stronger production. I'm not maybe a popular opinion, but that's mine. Number 9. Fishing for Fishies. You can't go wrong with this album. This one, it's just blues rock, catchy vibes. It's just good vibes. It's so much fun, so much positivity, and it's unique conceptually when it comes to the lyrics. I loved, the polar opposite factor to it, and Infest, the rats, right? I don't know if I necessarily buy into Jason's artwork on this one. I get the idea, but I'm not completely sold necessarily. But regardless, music-wise, this is, you really can't go wrong with any of these other albums now at this point. Number 8. Number 8, Ice, Death, Planets, so forth. It's their second official jazz, with some prog, naturally, album. I don't think it's quite as strong as number 7, which is Sketches. Sketches of Brunswick East. I think the two are obviously linked because of that reason, but I do think that, Sketches is just a little bit stronger overall. I mean, splitting hairs without a doubt. What I will say with Ice is that a lot of the songs, when they do it live, they're some of the best songs that they hear live. I love that. I think it just fits them so well because they are very much a jazzy band, right? So these songs work so well. Now, surprisingly, Sketches, a lot of the songs on there don't really make their way alive. So I hope that changes in the future. Number 6. Okay. This is going to hurt people. But yeah, I'm going to go with a PetroDragonic Apocalypse. Obviously, pound for pound, the strongest album artwork without question. I mean, the merch, popularity on this, let alone the popularity of this album is, sky high. But there's 2 elements about this album that really irk me. It is nearly flawless. I love inherently what this album does for the band and how important the songs are live. But I gotta say, because I'm somebody like probably many of you out there, I've seen them live so many times over the last couple years, they overplay these songs way too much. Look, I love their metal side of the band, don't get me wrong. Production is what holds this album back. Not everyone agrees with this opinion. I'm in the camp that feels like the production is way too flat. It feels more like a prog band attempting to play metal rather than them actually buying into, okay, this is a thrash proggy metal album. Let's use a little bit warmer, denser, thicker production sound. The songs are phenomenal, but they do feel a little flat when you're listening to it on the record, because live it sounds incredible. If they took that energy and that intensity and robust warmth, that would have worked better. Okay, number 5. You know what? Let's go with the most recent. Flight B741. It is unbelievable. Blues rocker, right? It's straight to the point, right? It's simple, it's focused, it's just, it's straight to it, right? And I've been waiting for this because, yes, they have some songs, right, on a number of their albums that are quote unquote simple and accessible, but they've never done a full-on album like that. And I've been wondering, can they actually do it? Obviously they have the ability, that was never in question, but would they ever actually do it? And what would it do for the band? And in my opinion, I think it does wonders for their expandability and where they can go from here, especially when they do their marathon sets with so many songs and so much music. These songs are critical because they inject so much, energy, right? That energy, that danceability, that just that blues, feeling of soul, but through the music, right? And it works so well. I saw they worked really, really well when I saw them live a few times most recently, and the production is so strong. Number 4, the most overlooked album in their entire catalog, without question, in my opinion, is Made in Timeland. This album, I listen to this album all the frickin' time. I don't know why people overlooked this album. Again, yes, I understand that it was during that time when they were releasing so many albums, so maybe it's because of that reason. Maybe it's because electronica side of the band is not, people's favorites. I don't know. But for me, this album just works so well for me. It's nostalgic because it reminds me of, me going back to my days in school and college and listening to a lot of, like acid prog electronica, and this just works so freaking well. I love everything about this album. I love it. I don't know how else to say. This is just, for me, I guess, maybe. But number 3. All right. If PetroDragonic is not this high, then what is, though, is Infest. Because in my opinion, it's just stronger. I think that the production suits the metal side of the band better. I also think that this album is just conceptually a little bit stronger from the flow standpoint and the balance, the depth, and the variety of the different types of songs. I like that it goes from, more of the punk energy to like the doom energy and the thrash and everything in between. And I love that. So that's why I have it a little bit higher. But obviously, there's the elephant in the room, which is Nonagon Infinity, which is next to almost impossible to beat because of how important the album is to the band and to its fans, because it truly introduced the band, right? Because conceptually, it opened the doors to, the Nonagon Infinity world and the world building and the lore and the theming and everything, the characters and everything that came with, and why we love this band so much. Remember, they are not just the most talented group of friends there is in the music industry these days, and they have so much depth and so much variety, but we got to remember that a big, huge part of this band is their themology, right? The world building, which cannot be overlooked. And Nonagon is it's the opening, right? And it revealed this next level of detail, and it just, I would argue, I think many people would argue, that it's one of the strongest conceptual albums in music history. But with that said, when you're looking at their entire catalog, I do think that there's one album that can top it. And for me, it is Omnium Gatherum. The reason being is because of all the albums, this is the one album that truly can represent their entire existence, their entire catalog, right? Their entire career, right? And all the different variety and experimentation and styles and playfulness. It has everything. It has their heavy side, their poppy side, their experimental side, their, garage side, psychedelic side, everything, even some rap and hip hop, right? It's got the soul, it's got everything. And I think because it is also unique, because it's such a long album, it is by far their longest album to date. And based on what we've observed from them, probably might be the only time that they ever do this. And I think because of that, it is the one album that I find myself consistently, repeatedly coming back to, because it's the one album from beginning to end that you can just sit back and just feel like, hey, I just listened to everything that King Gizzard, the almighty King Gizzard, has to offer to me. And that is a beautiful freaking thing. So that's the list. I guarantee you it's very different than yours. I'm sure there's going to be so many thumbs downs because everybody can't stand, this ranking of mine. But let me know what you think, what your rankings would be, things that would be different and so forth. Also, what do you think of the latest song, and what do you most importantly think will be the next style that King Gizzard does on their next album? Again, happy Thanksgiving. Celebrate, hope enjoyed all the wonderful food and the bonding of being with people. So be grateful. I'm grateful for all of you for sticking with this. Cheers and keep on rocking.